And there's something interesting about all of the majority black neighborhoods, which totally dispels everything Jesse Lee Peterson just said. These should have the lowest income, the lowest property values, the highest crime, and everything else. View Park, Windsor Hills, Gramercy Park, Leimert Park, Manchester Square, Baldwin Hills, Ladera Heights. Now, if you're familiar with some of my other videos, you know that I made a video comparing Ladera Heights to Beverly Hills. Actually, I compared View Park, Windsor Hills to Beverly Hills because you can make a fair comparison. And if you did not see that video, it may be shocking to you. Now, we go down to Compton. It's only 39.8% black. Watts is only 37.1% black. Okay? They're not predominantly black at all. Not at all. But we're going to look at the neighborhood that is predominantly black. We're going to look at Windsor Hills. Let's see what we can find out about it. View Park, Windsor Hills. Now, here is, first of all, let's look at some pictures. What does Windsor Hills look like? This is it. This is Windsor Hills. This is the most predominantly black neighborhood in all of Los Angeles. A neighborhood I am quite familiar with, by the way. View Park is actually known as the Black Beverly Hills. And you cannot get any blacker than View Park. You just can't. Now, let's look at some of the statistics, the numbers, and the facts about the single most predominantly black neighborhood you're going to find in all of Southern California, and where Jesse Lee Peterson resides. According to him, his own rhetoric, when blacks move into an area, a neighborhood, they destroy it, it becomes a ghetto. View Park, Ladera Heights, all of these neighborhoods, they have been predominantly black for decades. So what has happened to the property values in View Park? Let's look at an article on LA Observer. View Park gets an LA Times story with some geo confusion. I highlighted some things we're going to look at. The unincorporated community of View Park has hillside views of downtown Los Angeles, Hollywood mountains, and I imagine the ocean if you look the right direction. It also has lots and lots of palm trees and pre-war. Spanish-style Los Angeles homes. Pre-war. That's okay, fine. Made one word. All of this is why more and more people want to buy there, why the real estate prices are going up, and why there is a boom in remodeling, and why there's a push to nominate the neighborhood to the National Register of Historic Places as a special place before it is too heavily altered. Property values are skyrocketing in all of these areas. Baldwin Hills, Fox Hills, View Park, Windsor Hills, Ladera Heights, and they are predominantly black. That's it, View Park. It's one of the homes. If what he says is true, the quality of life there should be substandard, and he said they turned neighborhoods into a ghetto. This is a ghetto most people cannot afford to live in. Let me read a few facts about View Park, which is right next to Ladera Heights, Village Green, Leimert Park, Culver City, Inglewood. There's the beach. There's Beverly Hills. Let's read what it says about Windsor Hills. Windsor Hills median real estate price is $911,257. That's actually not accurate. This was some time ago. Prices have gone up. Median real estate price is over $1 million in Windsor Hills, and it is the most highly populated with black Americans city out of 272, which is more expensive than 78% of the neighborhoods in California and 95.5% of the neighborhoods in the USA. When black families did began moving in during the 50s and 60s, almost all of the whites left, as they did in South Los Angeles, Inglewood, and other areas that became integrated. View Park and its cousin neighborhood, Windsor Hills, formed part of the most affluent majority African American community in the Ladera area, possibly in the West. It has been called the Black Beverly Hills. President Obama held a fundraiser in View Park in 2012. Many of the new home buyers are white and younger, ensuing cultural tensions fueled in part by the continuing drop in the size of LA's black population caught the eye of a reporter at the LA Times. There is no white flight going on. There is a white influx that is happening in these areas where whites are going out of their way to move into these predominantly black areas, which totally contradicts what Jesse Lee Peterson said. They are absolutely not ghettos. The problem is that most white Americans cannot afford to live in these predominantly black neighborhoods. They cannot afford to live there. They cannot even afford to rent there. I'll be going to a friend of mine's house who lives in Ladera Heights in a few days. And while I'm there, I may make a video because I've been helping him with his project on working on one of his houses. And he's going to put it on the market for about $2 million. And if you wanted to rent it, it would cost you around $5,000 a month, which is significantly more than what most white Americans earn, even with two income earners. So you could not afford to even rent the house, let alone to buy it or even live in the neighborhood. This is totally contrary to everything Jesse Lee Peterson said. Property values have skyrocketed. There's been vast home improvement done by the blacks, unlike what he said. I didn't show you the portion where he said they don't take care of the houses, they don't cut their grass. I mean, anyone should realize that this guy is basically, he can't even believe his own rhetoric. And that's basically what the white gentleman was saying that was being interviewed by him. He said, I thought you were a joke or a cartoon. I can't believe you're a real person. I highly doubt that he believes his own rhetoric. The only thing I know for sure about him is that he is a self-hating Sambo. He hates himself. And if he hates himself as much as he does, I don't want to encourage him to kill himself, but he might want to at least consider it. Because you're not going to get any whiter. You're black, Jesse. Always have been and you always will be. So, that's View Park. And this is Ladera Heights. Now, View Park is not the wealthiest of the predominantly black communities. It is not. Ladera Heights is, actually. But even View Park, the reason we're going to focus on View Park is because, again, it is the most predominantly black neighborhood that you are going to find in the very region where Jesse Lee Peterson is from. And according to his rhetoric, if it was true, it should have been turned into a ghetto back in the 40s and 50s when blacks started moving in and whites started moving out. As the article stated, almost all of the whites moved out. So there should have been urban decline and urban decay. Property values have skyrocketed. The same whites who moved out of View Park could not afford to move back into it. Most of them. Most of them could not afford to move back into it. Unless their income has dramatically increased from what it was when they moved out. And a lot of them are trying to move back in, only to find that they can't afford to move back in. So what happened to the narrative of Mr. Jesse Lee, hate myself, Peterson? Hey, he said it, and I'm going to let you hear it again. I didn't say it, he said it. Haven't you noticed that when black people move into, I wish I could, he talks like he's retarded. I don't know if he is or not, but I'm certain that he's probably would score maybe a 76 on an IQ test. I don't know. But he talks like he's retarded. But anyway, I don't want to pick on the poor man, because it's bad enough that he hates himself. But let me look at some more. What else can we pull up for you? All right, here's another article. Residents grapple with change coming to View Park, LA's Black Beverly Hills. This was a recent article, February 22nd, 2018. Okay. His other neighbors were mostly African-American professionals, judges, lawyers, doctors, architects, business people, and police officers, he said. Growing up, he said, it's It was a glorious time to live in View Park, the hilltop community nicknamed the Black Beverly Hills of Los Angeles, along with nearby neighborhoods Ladera Heights, Windsor Hills, and Baldwin Hills, made up one of the most affluent, predominantly African-American enclaves in the nation. But times are changing in the neighborhood. With soaring home prices, the dearth of housing in Los Angeles, and huge homes with large lots, and the area's attractive central location, more non-African Americans are moving in. It's a trip, Gilbert Wright said. These are the people that moved out when blacks started moving in, and now they are moving back, but for a hefty price. And I have news for you. Black people would not move out of a predominantly black neighborhood because white people are moving in. They're not that hateful. We are not that hateful. In fact, we welcome diversity. We welcome white neighbors. That's not a problem. Because we have no reason to fear them. We just don't. We have no problem with that. That's what the white neighbors did when black people started moving in. They started moving out. Black people, we're never going to do that. But I'm going to tell you this. Even though blacks may not harbor that level of hatred, dislike, or racism, we're really not too crazy about it. We like the fact that these wealthy communities that most whites in the world could not even afford to rent in, move in, or live in are predominantly black. We love it. We don't mind having white people move back in. We're just not crazy about it. Being gentrified. No one's going to stop you. No one's going to redline you. No one's going to firebomb your house or make death threats or burn crosses in front of your house. These are the things that black people have suffered. These are the injustices inflicted on blacks when blacks started moving into predominantly white neighborhoods. Now that you have whites trying to move into these predominantly black neighborhoods, you don't have to worry about that. No one's going to burn any crosses. No one's going to leave any graffiti saying, "Whitey, get out," on your front door. You're not going to get any death threats just for moving in. But just so you know, and I happen to know because I know a lot of people, very wealthy black people who live in these areas, and I used to live there myself before I moved to where I live now, which I'm not going to disclose, but I can assure you one thing: I'm wealthier now than I've ever been, and nobody moves down, you always move up. So I already live well, but now I live even better. Let me put it like that. But I happen to know that I'm just not crazy about it. It's nothing against white people. Most of us have amazing white friends. I know I do. It's not that. We just like having a black, predominantly black enclave that we can call our own. There's nothing wrong with that. But anyway, Jesse Lee Peterson, what are you smoking? What the hell are you smoking? And by the way, speaking of Baldwin Hills, there was a show featured on BET some time back. The name of the show was Baldwin Hills, and it featured the black residents, some of the black teenagers and high school students who lived in Baldwin Hills. And they focused on the fact that they were affluent, wealthy, prosperous, the children of professionals, doctors, engineers, business owners, actors, entertainers, athletes, entrepreneurs, investors, etc. And you got a chance to see for yourself the lifestyle and the habits of the black people who live in these communities. And that's the show right there. At least that's a picture of it, of the cast. And hopefully some of those who watched it realized that they were being lied to, and a lot of stereotypes were smashed with truth and fact. A lot of the homes we're looking at, I know, if they still live there, some of the families that reside in some of these homes. And I can tell you one thing: a lot of us share a lot of commonalities in the way that we think, act, behave, and see the world. But in spite of that, we are decidedly and happily black, and have no desire to be seen as anything else. Now, there is a rift among the underclass within the black race and the wealthy or upper class. But that rift was never started by the wealthy or the upper class. For some reason, a lot of black Americans seem to feel that as blacks become more wealthy and affluent, number one, there's this idea that we move out of the ghetto and move into a white neighborhood. No. When you can, as you obtain more wealth, you want to have a better standard of living, and you're not chasing a white neighborhood. That's why a lot of blacks, whites, and other people are moving to these black neighborhoods. So a lot of black people who could not afford it, no, they're not moving to a white neighborhood. They are moving to a more affluent neighborhood, or a neighborhood that has whatever it is they were looking for, even if it is another black neighborhood. So what actually happens factually is many blacks, as they become more affluent, they move out of a impoverished neighborhood. And you know something? If you live in a ghetto, you should have no greater desire than to move out of that ghetto, regardless of where you have to go. Because if we are calling it a ghetto, it's not someplace any sane person should want to live, for all the right reasons. But what happens is, black people who might reside in a ghetto, if they come into some money, if they are still ghetto-minded, and maybe they got that money by hook, crook, luck, crime, or something else other than hard work, they may be the epitome of what you don't like. Not those of us who actually never even knew the poverty that you experience every day. I know I haven't. I know what it is like to be broke as a teenager and not have money in my pocket. I know what it is like to be so broke that I had to donate blood plasma for 3 months straight. But it's not because I came from poverty. I had parents in another country. They actually were in Germany for 3 years. And I had just left home right after high school. I could have called them. They would have sent me a check, or they would have sent me a plane ticket. I already had a plane ticket to go over there anytime I wanted to. I mean, I didn't have the actual ticket, but I had the right to just make the request, and it was already paid for. But I chose not to do it because I wanted to make it on my own and prove that I could. So therefore, even during that time, during that brief time period, where I donated blood plasma for money and used that money to buy food, even then, I did not have a poverty mindset. I still had the mindset that brought me to where I am today. And it is the mindset that makes the difference. But I don't want to get into that. I think I've done enough in terms of, do we need to look at anything else? I want to make sure we cover all grounds. This is Ladera Heights. Oh, by the way, in Ladera Heights, the median income is greater than it is in Beverly Hills. Oh, and another thing, let's talk about crime. In all of these black communities, and we're going to focus on the one that is the most black, you have very low crime. In fact, I made a video where I compared the crime rate in this predominantly black in the neighborhood of Windsor Hills to white neighborhoods that are even wealthier. And on that video, I show that in the white neighborhood, on some aspects of crime, the crime rate is even greater than it is in the black neighborhood. In both neighborhoods, it's relatively low. I think in the black neighborhood, within the last 6 months, there was 1 murder and 1 rape. It could have been a rape and a murder, which means it was 1 crime. In the white neighborhood, there were none over the past 6 months. But conversely speaking, if you want to compare apples to apples, because those neighborhoods are similar sizes, you might find a 6-month period where there was maybe 1 rape or murder in the white neighborhood and none in the black neighborhood, because in both neighborhoods, it is a rarity. It is an anomaly. It's not something that happens all the time. But you can clearly see from the statistic that some of the crimes happen disproportionately more in the wealthy white neighborhood than they do in the wealthy but less wealthy black neighborhood. So go figure.